I am Phillip Lanos, and today I am joined by Hayley and James Baillie of Baillie Lodges Australia. Baillie Lodges Australia is a dynamic portfolio of luxury lodges created by James and Hayley Baillie, setting new benchmarks for premium experiential travel. The duo created Baillie Lodges in 2003 and expanded across Australia, inspired by a shared love for travel and drawing on a complementary set of experiences in the higher end tourism industry. Man, I already want to be a part of whatever you guys are doing. Whoever wrote that gets points. It wasn't me. I can't promise that. But what I will say is so far it's been charming getting to know you guys as we started this conversation. And for me, it's one of those things where I've never left the country. So I've got to say, I'm in the Americas. You're in Australia. Australia is doing really great right now. But I imagine the pandemic has affected some of that. We could start there.
Oh, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that we've seen is our international borders closing. And so we have no international visitors coming to the country where we're so used to, especially in our business, the majority of our guests do come from overseas. And so where we've had to reimagine and focus really on our domestic market, and all of our operators have gotten behind how we can get more Australians to travel like their international visitors and get out and do the experiences and go deeper into the country and more of the far-flung places that they're potentially less inclined to, or they just always thought, oh, we'll get around to that at some point in time. So it has been challenging, but but we're really pleased with how things are progressing.
I see Australians are no different than Americans in the sense that when you've got everything you need at home, where are you going to go? But see, I've never left, so I don't know that. So I've got to ask, was there something that gave you the travel bug before you decided to do this? Or is this sort of let's see what happens?
I think both of us come from a background of travel. I worked for Lindblad Expeditions for almost 9 years. And so obviously that high-end experiential, spent seasons in Antarctica, the Arctic, all the oceans in between.
Wow.
And then...
I think with me, my travel was really more based around work. And so I ended up with I suppose a love of islands in actual fact, and I used to run a business that had 6 island resorts, and so I spent a huge amount of time actually traveling to those islands. I really grew up in that space, so when we got together, it really merged those sort of that joint sort of shared love of nature-based experiences and travel. And both of it was sort of at the high end as well, so it was it's been a great partnership in that way.
Did you two, and I hope you don't mind, did you two, because that would be a romantic story, did you two meet on one of these trips for work, or is that how that worked?
Well, actually, we actually met on an island, on a place called Heron Island on the Barrier Reef, and actually at a scuba diving festival that I was running, and that is actually where we first met. So it's a cute story.
We still have to go scuba diving this day together.
I love it. Now I would be petrified of scuba diving only because I can barely swim. Add to the list of the things that I'm not good at yet, like traveling and swimming, all the basics. But I can imagine there is a world to see out there. Now, is that part of what you guys offer with like the lodging that you have, or what comes in a package when someone signs up for something under the Baillie Lodges Australia experience?
Well, I suppose that the very basis of our product is that it's a complete experience, and we talk about experiences and that it's much more than just a room. And so pretty much everything's included. So we want people to come and we want them to immerse in that sort of local landscape and that ecosystem. So pretty much everything. So amazing dining, we're using local producers, all your beverages, so great wines and spirits, and often locally sourced as well. But we also have guides and adventures all included, so people can get out and about and actually enjoy the wonders of the region that they're in, and that's all part of it as well. So pretty much everything, apart from, say, indulging in a treatment in the spa or buying some amazing little artisan gift from one of the boutiques, everything else is included.
So it's the perfect getaway, and even for a time like now, honestly. Are you open to the Americans? Yeah, because there might be some complications with the borders and the way we've been managing things here.
It's looking like we will potentially still be closed to international visitors through until late next year. And so we'll be waiting very keenly, though, obviously, for when we can welcome back international visitors.
Sure. I've got a buddy out here, Patrick Ward, who comes from Australia, and I imagine he's homesick. I haven't had a chance to actually reach out to him, and speaking to you has reminded me. It's just one of those things where you don't think about it until you realize they're closed off to home. That's got to impact them. I'm here at home. So first of all, I appreciate you for even just whether you meant to do it or not, it happened. And so I look forward to that. For me, I'm wondering, do you have any friends or family that were kept on the other side? Since you travel, I imagine you have all kinds of friends that you've met across your journey, and some of them may have been on the other side.
Oh, yes, definitely. We've got Australian friends that are currently working and living overseas, and it's hard for them, especially at this time of year, and trying to keep in close contact because they've made the choice not to come back, and because there are tight restrictions around, even if you're wanting to, as an Australian wanting to come back with a mandatory 2-week hotel quarantine, and not everyone's really up for that. So
Yeah.
people are choosing to stay put where they are and ride it out. And so that's definitely challenging, especially at this time of year. And we also have other colleagues that American colleagues of ours in the travel industry, and even talking to one on Zoom the other day who actually had the virus, and talking to someone sort of firsthand, because I don't know anyone here in Australia that's had it. I think at such small numbers. And so it's, yeah, that was really eye-opening, and just, really to understand what the rest of the world's going through.
And that's got to inform the way. I mean, from what I'm hearing is there's an effort now to push forward locally to sort of get the Australian demographic to sort of, and I don't mean to dehumanize it, but a demographic to make it more generalized. The local community to sort of take a chance at taking some luxury breaks while the world is out on a standstill. And have you been creating different marketing campaigns? Like what are some of the processes you've been trying to put together to sort of encourage that culture, because it is a culture?
Well, Tourism Australia, our national marketing body, have done a great job at starting up a domestic campaign of Holiday Here this year to get Aussies to head out amongst the places that they haven't maybe been to, or go further afield, up to the Great Barrier Reef, out to the Kimberley, to Uluru. And I think that campaign is really driving some good visitation to the regional parts of the country. And then with our business,
I think, well, with us, I mean, it's really been a case of once we can open the borders, and we have in various between various states, business has really just been booming. And because Australians, so many Australians perhaps have been travelling overseas for so long that they've forgotten about what they have on their doorstep. So it's been amazing to see that incredible demand that's pent up, and right through next year. So and some of these sort of far-flung places. So it is just fantastic to see Australians getting out and booking incredible experiences within Australia.
I don't sense any worry about the future from you too, and I imagine it has to do with the fact that you've seen worse in your story as a business. Have you had to overcome incredible? I mean, everyone does, but I mean, in particular with your business, is there a reason why you're not so worried? Because whether you're charming or it is that you actually have a plan in place, one of those two has to be it. Because I imagine there's a story in you too somewhere that really.
I think I think the reality is that when we started the business, Baillie Lodges, that high-end experiential tourism, or what we call luxury lodges, really didn't exist. I mean, they did in a way. New Zealand was a pioneer of luxury lodges in the Southern Hemisphere, really for the world. But this high-end experiential tourism is sort of nature-based. Certainly in Australia, it wasn't really prevalent. And so we've, in a way, built a concept of which has grown, and many other people are in this market now, which is fantastic. But where we see moving forward is remote places with huge amounts of space. Ultimately, is when borders do reopen, they're the sort of places that people are going to want to go. And so we see that is, it's a trend that's going to continue. So I think the resilience will be there and the demand will be there. So it's just a case of let's get this crap under control, and then let's just get back to semi-normal, whatever that is. But I think that there will be this huge demand to come and experience places that are perceived to be really safe. And Australia is one of those. So you just have to get your passport organised and get down here.
I'm gonna have to. I really am. It's overdue. I imagine. So, is it just you two running the operation? Is it a sort of solopreneur thing, or do you actually have a team involved, like outside of marketing? You know, like a team for operations and day to day.
Yeah, no, we have a like a head office based in the northern beaches of Sydney, and there's about a dozen of the team in here, and we centralise, operations, so reservations, sales and marketing, accounts and finance. That's all centralised here in Sydney. Then at each property, there's a general manager and a team underneath them. So
Wow. Well, you have a full on operation. How have you have they felt any stress? Have you been the leaders that you're supposed to be? And
well,
be like, no,
definitely
everything's fine.
because ultimately all the properties have had to close over a
Right.
period of time. Will Save now reopened. That's it's been very stressful for everyone. So people have been stood down and had limited hours, and it's totally changed. So it's been a stressful time. We feel like we've come out of that now and moving forward. Although I'm sure there's going to be a few speed humps along the way.
I know that part of the experience that you offer has to do with dining, and in the Americas, the restaurant industry has been obliterated by what's happened, and so I'm hoping you have better news on that side of the world for the dining experiences out there as part of your services
Yeah,
that
well,
you
our
offer.
our restaurant industry, Touchwood has really bounced back in the last little while, and in fact, some states of Australia, it's basically hardly changed, except perhaps in some regional tourism centres where domestic visitors from other states have been barred from coming. But as a general rule now, it's been a tough 6 months for many people, but we've really come out the other side of that. Bar sort of short-term sort of lockdowns, which we're still experiencing in some parts of Australia.
You know, I have to say the amount of confidence you guys have while this is all going on, that things are going to change. For me, that's something that I think is a lot to offer for people who might be listening, because you don't know who's listening, right? There are there are people who are worried right now, like, will this ever change? But it seems like you've made a lot of people in your business, first of all, right? And so on top of that, you've seen a lot. You speak to a lot of people. From what I gather, there is something in there that you have to offer someone. So for anyone who's listening right now, who's struggling with their business and doesn't know what to do, and given that you yourself are in the luxury high end, I imagine it hits a little harder when when there's an entire portion of the world gets closed off, because travel to many is a luxury. So given that you've faced those odds and you've done that, what kind of mantra, philosophy have you lived by, that maybe another entrepreneur that or a business owner that's listening can sort of live with? It doesn't
Well,
have
I
to be
think
grand.
actually we've often, I think we've always been focused about what's made our business successful, and that's actually focusing on details. And I think for us that doesn't change, and so it's actually a time to actually spend and refocus on those details. Like we're both now, working on various projects. For one up at Silky Oaks Lodge, which is up in the Daintree, so we're that's under a major refurbishment that's about to kick off in a couple of months. So it gives time to really focus on those products. And we're also immersed in the rebuilding of our flagship Southern Ocean Lodge property on Kangaroo Island, which was sadly destroyed by the bushfires almost a year ago
All right.
in Australia. So there's a lot to keep us busy, and you can't really control what's happening outside in the bigger world. And for us, yes, a significant amount of our business came from overseas, and more specifically North America, with about 30% of our revenue coming from North America overall. And I think if you look back, I've been in the travel business for about 35 years, makes me feel old. But you see many trends and nothing stays the same, and it'll pass and we'll get back to, the new world. And I think that demand is going to be really pent up. And so I think ultimately really positive.
Hmm. Stay focused, stay busy, but more importantly, focus on building the new instead of worrying about the old. Yeah, I can see that. For me, now that you mentioned the new, you said you were opening up a lodge on Kangaroo Island, which was burned down, and then you mentioned another lodge that you plan to open in a few months. You said.
So this is an existing property, Silky Oaks Lodge, up in the Daintree in far north Queensland,
right?
Very close to the Great Barrier Reef, and it has been an existing property for quite some time, but hasn't had a significant redevelopment done on it for many years. So we're really excited about starting that project in April. Then we'll reopen in October next year, and doing a full refurbishment of all the guest suites, adding a new amazing Daintree pavilion, a two-bedroom sort of owner's cottage type feel, and really excited about giving it a new lease of life, because it's got amazing bones, but it just needs a little bit of a TLC and a touch to bring it into its next period of its life.
Sure.
The business has also recently expanded into, very close to you actually, with an amazing property in Canada called Clarequot Wilderness Lodge. And so that's a new addition, and that's undergoing some refurbishment shortly, and will reopen hopefully in the summer this coming year. Borders, let's hope the Canadian borders open up. And also we're expanding into New Zealand with the acquisition of an incredible luxury lodge in New Zealand. So that's all been happening behind the scenes whilst all this has been going on. So exciting time ahead for the team at Baillie Lodges.
Yeah, you've been busy, and you've even decided to set something up in New Zealand, which, as you mentioned, was the birthplace of luxury lodging.
Yeah, very much so. New Zealand's
full circle, huh?
Pioneer of luxury lodges, and in fact, the property that's coming on board is really I'm going to call it the grandfather of luxury lodges. So it's where it sort of all began, and 20 years ago, it's where Hayley and I went on a trip to actually go and sort of do a reconnaissance of what the market was like, what was going to be right for our amazing site on Kangaroo Island. And that's where we sort of, I suppose, came up with our unique blend of what we call relaxed luxury, because some of the New Zealand properties are much more formal, almost European in their basis. But we wanted to showcase what we feel is Australia is all about, which is relaxed luxury. And that's where we also came up with what we call first name service, because I remember traveling around, and at the time I was probably in my late 30s, early 40s, and it's like I hated being called sort of sir, and being how to be called this and that, and Mr. and Mrs. blah blah, and we just love the whole first name style. So that's been a real signature for us, what we call first name service, and ultimately that when you stay with us, you should feel like you're coming home or staying with friends.
I love this. It's something I didn't expect to ask this, but you seem to work really well together. And for me, that's not always the case. There's always, first of all, working with family, let's say, right, in general, tends to, or people who are close to you, tends to cause sort of antagonism. But then you combine that with the fact that, there's also the spouse situation, and that doesn't always work. Now, how do you guys make it work with, business and then everything else? Can I ask that? I mean, nothing's perfect, obviously, but
we've certainly had our ups and downs.
Yes, but we do have a really amazing partnership, both obviously as being married, but also in the business, because over the years we've worked out where our strengths lay, and we divide things up, or we collaborate on certain things that we're really passionate about. We both know what each other brings to that, making those decisions, and so we actually have. I think we have way more fun than angst, really. We just love it, and I think that's what just keeps us involved and keeps us wanting to be part of the growth of the business. But yes, there's definitely the challenges, like every couple has. But it's
like Hayley's really messy,
and James is like so tidy, like it's ridiculous. It's the other extreme.
Oh no, I love it. There's a few things that I work on outside of this, and I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they all say the same thing: choosing their spouse was the best decision they ever made for business and life. And so it looks like I can see it, even the way you two look at each other. I can see you guys are still in love, and that's great. I'm sure it's well earned. I'm sure it's not easy. For me,
he tries to steal my ideas half the time, and a few months later say they were hers.
He actually is saying that because that's what he does to me. It's the running joke.
Oh, what would be a great idea? Yeah, I said that last month. Oh no, I love it. This has been awesome. For me, I think there was a lot of value in this. Lighthearted, informative about the luxury industry and a few other things in terms of travel. And for me, I think closing it out, I generally tend to ask this. Uh, if there's anybody, because you never know who's listening, and in business, it's always like, oh, I know somebody I can refer you to or what have you. You never know who's listening. There could be someone on this podcast listening right now whose either life has been changed or whose life will be changed, either because you're looking for a hire or you're looking to bring on a partner, a consultant. So is there someone by name? Maybe you're just a fan of this person. It could be like, a big famous person. So by trade, name, is there anyone in particular you'd love to meet, work with?
Well, I think for me, there's, I suppose, a bit of an icon in luxury tourism is a guy called Adrian Zaka, who founded Aman Resorts in Asia. And really back in the 80s, late 80s, he opened the very first one, Aman Puri, and a whole series of Aman properties. And I always sort of, I suppose, just so respected that incredible pared back design ethos and the small nature. And really it was pioneering, because before Aman, luxury was about big and glitz and, much more a built environment. And whereas it was the first time the trend of really sort of focusing on local and amazing architecture and, came about. And so he probably is that sort of, I suppose, very much still living icon, although, not so involved day to day now because Aman's no longer his, but definitely someone that, I have this sort of great respect for as being a visionary in this industry.
And I second that.
Wow. Yeah. See, it's just clear as day when you're clear on what it is you want, when you're clear and you dialed in and you both have a passion for what you do, which is what I imagine is really pulling you through this time. You both love to travel. So if the best part is to work on your business, all you have to do is travel, and it's technically still part of the business. For me, that's the perfect recipe for a successful business or entrepreneurship partnership, because really at the end of the day it doesn't feel like work, even if it is, and I'm sure it's not always easy, but I can see the passion behind what you're doing. And if that passion is in any way related to the way you've set up the buildings and the resorts and the lodging that you have, I think for anyone who takes a part of it, they're going to feel that love, they're going to feel that passion, that inspiration, that adventure, that because the DNA of any creator is always going to be in their creation. And so for me, I'm excited. I've never even given any thought to traveling in general, and mostly because I'm like a workaholic, and that's something I'm working through myself. I'm a recovering perfectionist. But for me, for one of the first things I'm going to do is definitely check out Australia the minute I get my passport. And I know my partner, she'll love to do that, because we need to get out of America at some point. So I'm personally grateful, and I honestly think unless you have something else you want to share with the world, like where they can follow you, where you prefer to be reached, that kind of thing, website, social media, I think this has been a great conversation.
Well, thank you so much. So the whole idea is to get as many, when the borders are all open, get as many Americans to think about coming to Australia. Wide open spaces, great friendly people, amazing food and wine, wildlife experiences, nature, the Great Barrier Reef, Uluru. There's just so much to offer. So we'd love to have you all come and visit.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you can also visit us at baillielodges.com.au and on all social channels at Baillie Lodges.
Awesome. Awesome. I just remembered you guys also stole Natalie Portman from us, huh? I think her whole family moved out that way because there was a situation where like they had to do a film for a movie or something. So you don't know,
Yes,
maybe.
I think she's up on the Gold Coast living
Yeah,
there
yeah,
filming.
That's amazing. She might have to take the time to say, I wish I knew her. I'd be like, hey, you should stay at Hayley and James space. So it's been a pleasure. I personally will be connecting with you just in general outside of this, but thank you for stopping by.
Thanks so much. Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
us.
Thank you.
See you later.